Oki, Sspopiikimi. It is early in the day on Tuesday, September 19th, 2017, going in the lunar cycle a.k.a. the deer moon, which is our last summer lunar cycle. And I'm out here at Sspopiikimi, the Turtle Waters, aka Elizabeth Hall Wetlands in Sspopiikimi, Lethbridge, Alberta. It's kind of warm, it's about 10 degrees, but I feel comfortable in my t-shirt. Bright sunny skies and a bit of a breeze you can probably hear. Water is still very low here, and I've decided to come out for a little walkabout, looking at what's new. I've got a couple of questions in mind out here. I want to look at and see whether the beavers are caching any of their winter food supply yet, and in particular out on the wet meadows, whether they're lining up some of the material to cache. They have kind of a system about it that I hope to show if they're up to it already. I also, of course, want to check out if there's anything still blooming out here, going into this last winter or last summer moon. And yeah, other than that, just looking at who's here, what's new, what's everybody doing. I haven't been out for about a week, maybe just a little over a week. I haven't been walking out here, so I feel a little detached, and I've got a bunch of other work to do today, but I couldn't help myself. I had to come out here and reconnect. So I'll show you guys what I see. So one of the flowers that still has some blooms out here is this. This is the hairy golden aster. Most of it's going to seed already, and there's not too many plants that are in bloom, but there are still some. Not seeing any pollinators on the asters. Not seeing any insects to speak of. And that's another good question right now, would be what insects are still out and about. Almost as though they heard me ask the question about the insects. I didn't have to step like more than 5 or 6 paces, and I've come across an underground wasp hive. Now, to be fair, I knew that this was here somewhere because I've been kind of watching it for a few weeks. This is the time of year when the wasp hives have grown so much, like they have so many members, that they're very conspicuous. And so this is also the time of year when, you know, people tend to go on wasp killing rampages at their homes. Me, I don't have a problem with them. I used to. I used to get stung every year, multiple times. And I had kind of what I think was a bee and a wasp curse that occurred because I tried to stamp out an underground bumblebee hive when I was 5 or 6 years old. And every year after that, into almost my 30s, I would get stung multiple times. I would get swarmed every season, and it was very horrific. But it ended after a little ways after my marriage. Some years into my marriage, we actually went to go see a Blackfoot medicine woman for another issue, but she had us do a cleanse, a spiritual cleanse. And when I was done with the cleanse, the material that we used, I went to put it outside, and where I put it, when I kicked the leaves aside to lay it down, there was a dead wasp underneath. And ever since then, I have never had, well, I can't say I've never had a sting. I've had the occasional sting, but that has only come because I've stepped on one or something like that, not from any aggression of the wasps. And now I can stand, you know, fairly close, not too far away from the wasp hive, and I feel totally comfortable. But yeah, a lot of people do go on killing rampages this time of year at their homes, and really it's unnecessary. Like, this whole hive of wasps is going to die off except for the queens. Queen will come out and find somewhere to hibernate. Everybody else is going to die off very soon. This is our last summer moon, so But the hives are very conspicuous now because of all their members, and where people didn't have any problems with them earlier in the season, they got lots of problems now because they can see them. And that's where I find with modern people in general, they're okay with the animals when they can't see them, but as soon as they can see them, as soon as the animal is conspicuous, then it's a problem animal. Yeah, I'm out here just south of the Beaver Lodge, where there's actually quite a few painted turtles both in the water and basking. This is probably one of the last kind of deep pools in the pond right now. So I guess it makes sense that they're out this way. I don't know if you can see them on here, but there's quite a few. I can easily count probably 20 turtles right now, just lingering around in the water here. Nice to see good-sized families of geese out here. Last few weeks I was noting that there was just couples, and it was weird. They were kind of guarding the islands again, kind of like this pair here. They were staking claims to islands and trying to chase others off, and really acting as though it were springtime again and they were getting ready to nest. If that was the case, we'd be in for some, possibly some real unexpected climate change. But I don't think so. Now these groups are starting to behave a lot more like geese going toward the winter. Got a killdeer out here. Sspopiikimi. Shadows on the water. There's probably others out here, but I'm not seeing any of the yellow legs that have been here the last few weeks, and I'm not seeing the herons. Wish I'd have brought my video camera just over a week ago when I was out here, because saw some migrating turkey vultures, and that's not often a sight in Alberta. Down here we've got tufted white prairie aster in bloom. I've seen a couple of pink-edged sulfur butterflies. And I heard a clickhopper, which is a type of grasshopper. Oh, who's these flying around? Are those yellow legs? There might be some yellow legs out there. But yeah, heard a clickhopper, and I think I saw a variegated meadowhawk which is a type of dragonfly. Still out here. Yeah, these are definitely lesser yellowlegs out this way, so they are still around. Not hearing any catbirds. They haven't been around for a couple of weeks at least. No eastern kingbirds, because there's not that many insects. Haven't even heard any of the cedar waxwings yet today. Don't know if they're still here or if they're gone. Here I have a few Canada goldenrods still in bloom. This is the odd bunch though. There's not a whole lot around. And again, no insects visiting. There's also some of these showy asters. These purple-blue showy asters. These are late summer flowers. The last among them. There's a couple of dragonflies now. This one, I forget his name. I know I've got it noted somewhere, so maybe I can insert it on the edited video. It's real colorful wings on this one. And then there's another just up ahead here. See if I can find him. There he is. This looks like a meadowhawk. He's got a pretty slender abdomen, or whatever you would call that. So I might have this species wrong. It might not be a variegated meadowhawk, but this is what I've been seeing around here today. There's lots of these bullberries. What I call bullberries are Meeksinitsim, the red berry. I know other people might call this thorny buffalo berry. And these aren't ready yet. Hey, I mean, you can eat them, but they're gonna be pretty tart. Gotta wait until after some good frosts, and then they'll be ripe, sweet. Do you see what I see? Sspopiikimi. Great blue heron, he's still here. Thought he'd have fished it out by now. Alright, here I am at the Sspopiikimi at the Beaver Lodge. And there's some interesting things going on here. What's not going on is that I'm not seeing any of the winter food cache left here yet. So that's not in place as yet. If it is building, it's building below the water, so far below where I can't even see it. And I don't think it's that deep. But there is some other stuff going on here which is interesting. One of the things is the amount of beaver dung that's on the outside of the lodge right now. I've been watching this place for 14 years, and never before have I seen them deposit dung up on top of their lodge like this. I don't know what that means, but there's a lot of it. So that's a strange thing. A new thing. They're obviously, you know, they're still bringing mud up here and stuff like this. So a little bit worried about them with the water so low. I mean, the water is perhaps lower than I've ever seen it. But and maybe that has something to do with the dung deposit, I don't know. There are some interesting plants growing on the lodge. We have a white sweet clover still in bloom. Lots of mint. It's already seeded out, but the leaves are still good for mint tea. Really strong, nice strong. Canada thistle still in bloom on the lodge. And I saw something else over here. Oh yeah, this is a sow thistle over here, and a honeybee visiting it. One of the access doors into the lodge is here, but they may have shorted up so that no predators can get in. Look at this mint. This is really good mint still. And yeah, that's what's happening at the beaver lodge. So I don't know if they're preparing for winter at all yet. If they are, like I said, I don't see it. Okay, so just north of the beaver lodge here, I have some of that staging that I was talking about. This is a beaver run coming out of the water here, coming up onto the wet meadows, heading out this way. And you can see they're coming up through here and moving into the sandbar willows here. And they're cutting sandbar willows, and then they take them and they bring them out and they pile them up. I'll show you this. This is part of that staging I was talking about. Now this is kind of a messy pile. I've seen much better piles of willow from the beavers. Usually they put them all facing the same direction, all the stems facing the same direction, and usually a lot more well lined up than this pile. So this beaver might be a novice. But he's got most of his stems facing the right way, you know. And yeah, they'll pile them up, and I don't know what it is they're doing, if they're curing them or what, but they'll make a bunch of piles out here in the wet meadows, and then at some point, you know, before the winter, they'll come and they'll drag those and they'll put them in their food cache. And occasionally they'll forget one pile or two out here, and I can still find them in the winter, but most of them they drag off. And much bigger piles than this, by the way. That's a little pile, and it's looking a little disheveled. I think it's maybe a novice at the art. Let's see if we got some more coming up here. Definitely got some cuttings going on through here. Just a few here. Not really what I'm used to seeing, but it could just be that because this is the early stage of their harvest, right? So maybe they'll make all this stuff shape up a little bit more as things go along. But yeah, I'm used to seeing fairly, you know, significant piles of sandbar willow, all cut, very nicely stacked, put together, and aimed with their stems toward the water, ready to be taken out when the time comes. Yeah, so I think that's probably about it for my walk today. It's probably about all the activity that I'm gonna note. Nothing surprising, with the exception of the beaver dung all over the top of the lodge. That's the first time I've ever seen that. But what is going on out here, the things that are blooming, the few insects that are out. And by the way, there was a drone fly that I wasn't able to include. They hibernate here, the drone flies. So it's not too surprising either. But yeah, most of the plant and insect life that's out and about right now is totally predictable. It's the same thing that happens going into this lunar cycle every year. And yeah, just nice to come out and have a walk around. The water is really low. Like I said, maybe lower than ever before going into winter, and we'll see what happens. Usually it is low at this time of year, but not quite this low. And then just before the ice comes over the pond, the water level raises in the river. I don't know what makes that happen. whether it's just a product of St. Mary's Dam or what. But yeah, the water level does rise right before we go into winter usually, so we'll see if that happens. Not a lot of smaller birds around. I saw a couple of magpies, and I might have seen one or two yellow-rumped warblers in the wet meadows. There were a couple of small warbler-sized birds, and that's usually who's here this time of year. But it could have been somebody else, I don't know. Definitely none of the summer birds, right? So I'm not seeing, like I said, the eastern kingbird, the catbird, the gray catbirds. Of course, none of the yellow warblers, they've been gone for a while now. None of the goldfinches, they've taken off a couple of weeks ago. Even the kingfisher I haven't seen today. He was here a week or so ago. But yeah, that's what I'm noting out here as we move into a.k.a, the deer moon.